સુખમાં સમરો દુઃખમાં સમરો સમરો દિવસ ને રાત જીવતા સમરો મરતા સમરો સમરો સૌ સંગાત સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર યોગી સમરે ભોગી સમરે સમરે રાજા રંગ દેવો સમરે દાનવ સમરે સમરે સૌની શંખ સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર અડસત અક્ષર એ ના જાણો અડસત તીર્થ સાર 8 સંપદાથી પરમાણો અડસિદ્ધિ દાતાર સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર નવપદ એના નવનિધ આપે ભવ ભવના દુઃખ કાપે વીર વચનથી હૃદય વ્યાપે પરમતમ પદ આપે સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર એના મહિમાનો નહીં પાર એનો અર્થ અનંત અપાર એના મહિમાનો નહીં પાર એનો અર્થ અનંત અપાર સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર
Pranam, JJ and everyone. Samrat છે?
We can hear you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Let's start with Navkar mantra. Then we'll start, okay? Everyone close their eyes. Namo Rihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ariyanam, Namo Vajayanam, Namo Loe Sabasahunam, Eso Panchanamukaro, Savapavanasano Manglanancha Savesim, Padhamam Havai Mangalam. In advance, Jinagna Virudh Kai Pen Bolai Jai, to Manvachan Kai Kari, Michami Dugdam. If I say anything against the teachings of the Jinas, due to my lack of knowledge, Michami Dugdam. Okay. So today's topic is karma. I have a series of presentations and different things that I'm going to talk about. But before I start, just from everybody who's here, just so I get an idea of what people already know and what we want to talk about today, I've listed a number of things on the messages that you saw. But if anyone has any specific questions or things that they want to try to address, if you just in the next few minutes speak up now, then I can bear that in mind for the rest of the talk. So we can do a bit more stories based, a bit more philosophy based. We can talk about causes of binding of karma, how to stop karma, some proof from the Western world of how we can prove the existence of karma. Karma is a huge topic. So if anyone has any particular areas they would like to focus on, just say so now. Yeah. So I'll hand it over to all of you if anyone has anything. And if not, then I've got some ideas anyway. Cái હોય તો હમણાં બોલજો. Sushila? Fine. 10 more seconds and then I'll start on something.
Hi, Mukul Pai. Can I ask you a question? Okay,
Yes.
I'm Sarita.
Hi.
So basically, I want to understand a little bit that, when we have genetic inheritance as a parent and your child suffers because of the genetic conditions
Yes.
or your genes, because of your genes, yeah. How is this related to karmas? So if you can explain later on once you've done the topic on karmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'll incorporate that. And if I forget anything, remind me, but fine. So genetic conditions and how they link into karma.
Yeah. So basically, as parents, we produce our children, but we don't know that we have genes which can affect your child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And then how is that related to karmas
Fine.
and our past life or whatever karmas we've done?
Okay, we'll talk
Thank
about
you.
that. Definitely. Anything else, anyone?
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
Hi, Sandeep. Hi.
sorry. I just wanted to ask one question. In the past, I was told that in devlog,
Yeah.
obviously everyone's got karmas.
Yeah.
They've basically in devlog they're restricted to doing certain things in terms of the number of pujas and all that.
Yeah.
Although they have various other things which are more flexible,
Yeah.
let's just say, more than the humans.
Yes.
So, I mean, like they have plenty of time. They have, in terms of eating, they don't have to eat for a long time.
Yeah.
So they can do more penances.
Yeah.
But they don't take any vows,
Yeah.
and all that. So I just wanted to know, I mean, because they're in a favorable situation initially, because they can do other things, everything, and they can reduce their karmas.
Yes.
So I don't understand why they can't do pachkan and all that.
We can talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, I just wanted to know what the mechanism is in terms of what they can and can't do.
Yeah. Okay, devlog. Yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay, thanks.
Mukul Bhai, there was a comment on the chat from Bijal. How does karma, nirjara, and punya band work? Is there a connection?
Fine. Yeah. We can talk about that. Okay. Fine. So I've got three things, just so I keep them in my head. Most of the children's questions are about diets. They understand. Let me just read this other question. Most of the children's questions are about diets. They understand why can't eat potatoes, but trying to explain, okay, fine, about dry ginger compared to, all right, fine. So diet. So we can talk a little bit about diet. Yeah, that's fine. I'll incorporate that into what I'm talking about. Hasubai. Fine. I'll incorporate into the bigger context of karma as well. Yeah. So there's 4 questions. Fine. Okay. Oh, and one new message. Thank you. Okay, fine. Okay. I'm going to actually start with some of the questions, and I'll incorporate them into the presentation as well. First of all, genetic conditions and karma. So we're not addressing it directly today in terms of the types of karma, because that's a whole topic in itself, and I want to do a slightly broader overview. But for the purposes of this question of genetic conditions, out of the 8 main categories or subtypes of karma, there's one called nam karma. Nam karma is the karma that's responsible for our physical body, our voice, every aspect about us. Anyone who comes with a certain karma into this world, the way that karma manifests itself can vary. Now, if your parents give you certain genetic conditions due to inheritance, that can only, anything that happens is a vehicle to manifest your karma in this life. Now, the way that that's manifested can be through the genes of your parents, which pass things on, can be through an accident, can be through various means. But as we did in that book club, nothing happens without a cause, according to Jain philosophy. So any action has a reaction. And the basis of glad acceptance in this world, that any situation that manifests itself in some way or the other has come about due to karma and has been modified by karma. Now, that counts for everything, whatever permutation you're going to look at it, whether that's a genetic condition, whether that's something that you've brought yourself into. So no child will suffer without that being a reaction for something in the past, according to Jain philosophy. So that's a little bit on genetic conditions, and how those karmas are bound, we'll talk a little bit about as well today. The other question about how does karma nirjara and punya band work? Is there a connection? I'm going to give you a metaphor. Okay. You've got a glass. The glass is full of oil. Okay. To remove that oil, you need to wash the glass. To wash the glass, you'll apply soap to wash off the oil. Finally, you put on some water, and the soap and the oil wash off. Similarly, as a metaphor, you have ashub, which is bad, which is the oil. You have shub, which is good, which is the soap. And you have shud, which is clean, which is pure, which is when you finally wash everything off with the water. Ashub is paap, or sins, or negative deeds. That's the oil. Shub is punya. Good deeds, positive deeds. That's the soap. Should is the state of the glass once everything is cleared. Now, everyone might not straight away be ready to move straight from ashub to should. It's better to do punya than to do paap. So punya bandh is all the good deeds that you do, because your mind is always active. It's either going to be going in the negative direction or the positive direction. And then when you're really ready towards the end, it can go, yes, towards the direction of stopping the binding of karma. And there's various sort of nirjara we can talk about later on. But just bear in mind this metaphor, that sometimes punya is a necessary step to stop binding paap and prepare yourself to then go to a higher plane. In the same way that you can't always get to the 14th step of a staircase, sometimes you have to ascend through other steps. And what is dharma for one person might not be dharma for another person. It depends where one is on one's spiritual progress. So yeah. So that's just a little bit on that. The other question, Sandip, about devlok. So just to put that in context for everyone, one of the types of 8 karmas is called Ayushya karma. We only bind Ayushya karma once in our life. Jainism says you bind Ayushya karma. Ayushya means the karma which determines your next life, where your soul will go from this life to the next. You only bind it once in your life. The Ayushya karma can be one of 4 types. Manushya, human. Tiryansh, animal and plant kingdom. Devlok, heaven. And Narak, or hell. Heaven and hell, Devlok and Narak, in Jainism are temporary states. I'm just being quite basic, maybe patronizing, just to keep everyone to the same level, and we'll address the question as well, just in case. So heaven and hell in Jainism are similar to what Christianity terms for hell as purgatory. So it's a temporary state. It's not a permanent state according to Jainism. It's a state for the balancing of our karmas. And the minimum lifespan in heaven and hell is 10,000 years. 10,000 varsh. The maximum lifespan is, I believe, forgive me if I'm slightly wrong, but it's something called 32 or 33 sagropam, which is ocean measured periods, which is a huge, huge amount of time. It's uncountable in our terms, and there's various metaphors you can use to count it. But let's just say it's not infinite, but it's a huge amount of time. The reason these places exist is if you imagine someone like Hitler, someone like Putin, who might be responsible for millions of deaths, directly or indirectly. The maximum punishment that exists in this world is capital punishment, is death. That's the same for someone who's killed one jiv, or one life form, or someone who's killed uncountable life forms. And hence, heaven and hell exist to balance karma. Same for heaven, on the opposite side. Devlok, the conditions are so nice, they're so pleasant, that yes, so from Devlok, you can't be born in hell, in Narak. And you can't be born in Devlok again. You can either go to Tiryansh or Manushya, or animal kingdom and human. And which one you go to depends on your deeds. Our scriptures do say, as Sandip said, that while devs can do various things, they can do pujas, they can think positive thoughts. So Mayur Bhagwan in his immediate life before he was Mayur Bhagwan was in devlok. And they're not able to do samayik. They're not able to take diksha, obviously. They can't take vows. And that is a rule of devlok. And hence Manushya, or human life, is considered superior in many ways to devlok. And that's just to do the nature of the place. Like devlok is a place where your punya, linking it to the previous question, is there to be balanced. And that means that even the very place that you're in doesn't conduce itself to taking pachkans or taking vows. So I would answer that question that it's to do with the environment of the place and the rules of that place. Like if we go to a derasar, our whole mindset, everything changes according to the environment. If you go to a party or a nightclub, your mindset will change. Now you'll have different inclinations within that. So devs, still some can still be materially minded. They often have a lot of jealousy in devlok because there's one dev who has a certain amount of possessions, there's another who has more. But there's variation within that, but variation within what's possible in that place rather than a larger variation. That's how I'd answer that question. I know it's not a complete answer, but that's a partial answer, Sandip. And I'll try and do some more reading, speak to my dad as well, and try and get another question. Now, the final question about
Okay,
diet.
thank you.
Yeah, the final question that Hasubhai gave is, most of the children's questions are about diets. They understand why we can't eat potatoes, but trying to explain why we can't have dry ginger compared to fresh ginger. I'm going to take this question back a step, okay? My daughter, Uditi, okay, who some of you might have seen just at the beginning of this, or often, so she's 5 years old now. And yes, we talk about diet amongst other things, but I never talk about diet in isolation. If I want to explain about diet to my daughter, I'll make sure I'll explain it in the wider context of where that comes from. Because one of the dangerous things that I think we've done as a community, which has caused sometimes, sometimes driven children, people make one of two mistakes, okay? They either say, all of this is minor stuff. Abadu chalse, tame abadu khajo. It's okay. Some people do that. Other people on the other extreme will say, nah, but it na khawai. Kem? Kanke Bhagwan e kidhu che. But they don't offer more explanation than that. I wouldn't even go into that at the start. I would take it several steps back. That first of all, what's the core principle of Jainism? It's peace, positivity, non-violence in word, speech, and action. And hence we're vegetarian because we don't want to harm animals. There's a whole science of Jiv Vichar, which I read with Uditi. It's a book I have. It has various pictures. One of the big reasons veganism has caught on as a movement positively is because we can see in front of our eyes the pain that goes into 5 cents life. And actually, I would encourage that as a compassion, that is directly linking in to compassion for 5 cents life, for cows. Because yes, in the modern day process, they're being harmed in the process. And anyone who follows that, and we can explain it very easily because they can see it in front of their eyes. So that's all encouraging compassion. Now, the thing about potatoes is if we study ourselves, Jiv Vichar, which is a science of biology, according to Jainism, then we're linking in this to the main concept of karma. Karma is action and reaction. the most pain is felt by five-sensed life because they have the most senses. Their soul, through the progress of evolution, has gone from Ek India, Be India, Te India, Tur India, Panch India, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sense, and has progressed so far that now, in a state of fear and anger and pain, you're literally just cutting that life with that five-sense life, and that soul is having so much suffering and even feeling that much pain, which is why out of the pyramid of non-violence, meat is right at the top. Meat, fish, eggs, and then followed by things like honey. So that's the explanation of non-violence. Now, potatoes, onion, garlic are all classed as anantkai. What does that mean, anantkai? Anantkai means in the smallest particle of a potato, in the smallest particle of an onion, and in the smallest particle of fresh ginger, there is infinite lives, which is called nigod, which is a state of many, many souls being in nigod. Now, the second question will come from your child is, this is said in our scriptures, but how can we prove it? And we need to be able to prove these things and talk about them in the concept of modern science. Because otherwise, what is you just saying something due to blind faith and because your grandparents and grandparents said, and what is something you're saying because you researched it, you've studied it, and then you're explaining it to your kids? Because in this day and age today, anything you say, at least at the first stages, you need to be able to back it up with evidence. And if you can't, then say to your kids that, look, this is what is written in our scriptures. I'll show you this. And let's try and find out together. Let's study various things and try to come to an answer. Otherwise, they might do something for a few years because you've said it. But once they get to their teenagers, unless their mind is convinced, unless their heart is convinced, and it's not even a battle of convincing, it's a process of discovery together. Then that's something that they won't rebel against, but will last a lifetime. Because Jainism is one of the most scientific spiritual, one of the most scientific religions of all. If you study it properly, then many things that Jainism says, and karma, which we'll talk about, is one of the most scientific things, which, to be honest, any other faith cannot explain to you what happens in this world. Karma can, and we'll talk about that. So I would then explain that through the mechanism of science. And actually, so coming back to that question, there's a book where there's been experiments done, and they've looked at these potatoes and other things with a microscope. And today, they've proved this anantkai. Same with ukare lupani, same with various things. So as a scientist myself, I would take it from a scientific point of view. And then I have that much faith in Bhagwan's scriptures that I'm sure if I took that from a scientific point of view and I had those two things, I could probably see and prove for myself. And for me, I've studied science, I've studied our Jain faith, I've also read all these other different faiths, and I've convinced myself from all the things that yes, definitely, this is the one faith that for me has explained all of these things. So let's take that. So those, I think, are the questions. Were they all of the questions? I think that's all of the questions. Karma, Nirjara, and there was a question at the beginning. What was it? Yeah. So that's all the questions. Fine. Okay. So before I start my presentation, which I've got 5 or 6 different presentations on karma. We're only going to have time for one of those presentations today. But before that, I want to give you a broad overview. Some of you might have heard this story, okay? There's 2 brothers and a dad. and a mum. The mum treats one brother really nicely, and the other brother is harmed, is hurt at every point of time. She thrashes him, she beats him, she shouts at him. And the other brother, same mum, same house, is treated really nicely, given the nicest things. And one day the dad goes to a learned Jain saint, a Guru Maharaj, and asks, I have two sons. One, mom treats so nicely, and the other, she harms at every point of time. Why is this? The Guru Maharaj applied his knowledge, and he was a very learned Guru Maharaj, who had advanced so much in knowledge that he had the ability to see people's past lives. He said, many, many lifetimes before, your two children were also two brothers. And they were they were going in a chariot down a road. And on this road, one brother was saying, let's go faster, let's go faster. The other saw in the distance a bird. And he said, no, let's slow down because we might crush this bird. The first brother said, no, the rules of this land don't say we have to stop for birds, and we're in a rush, so we should go fast. The second brother says, no, we should slow down, otherwise the bird will get hurt. The first brother wins. They go fast. The bird gets crushed. The second brother straight away comes out of the chariot and says, what have you done? He goes to the bird, soothes it, calms it, consoles it, says a prayer. And the bird dies. A little bit more peacefully because of the consoling words of that second brother. Many, many, many lifetimes after, these three souls meet again. As you can imagine, the bird becomes the mother. The brother who had negative intentions to the bird becomes the brother who's treated badly by the mom. The brother who wanted to look after and had positive intentions for the bird becomes the second brother. No other philosophy can explain the various permutations we see in this world. It can't just be random. Randomly, you meet someone, you like him, you dislike him. We read about these kind of things in the newspaper all the time. A husband harms a wife harms a husband, a mom doesn't care for the child. And then, I said in the blurb for this presentation, at the personal level, at the global level, at the society level, as a society, a whole nation today chose a path of exclusion, of selfishness, of looking after yourself and your own economic prosperity due to the possible lies of somebody else, believing those lies, and choosing the path that protects yourself at the expense of others. Maybe even if you yourself have been an immigrant into a certain country, but now you're in a reasonable position, and for your own people, you chose a path of selfishness. And as a global energy of that whole country, that manifests in this Kali Yuga as a person who takes that whole largest democracy into a state of pain for most of that country. That is an example of samuha paap, or a paap that manifests a whole nation. I'll give you another example. A whole theater of a cinema is watching a film which glorifies killing. And some guy with a shotgun comes and he kills loads of other enemy soldiers. And all of these people are the graphics, the cinematics of this film are so vivid that all of these people together have a feeling that, oh, it's so good that they kill these people and it's so good. They all together bind up. And 11 lifetimes later, they all die in a plane crash together. That's another example of samu paap. And you can have samu punya as well. Now, karma is one of the types mentioned by the genetic. So many different types, and that is responsible for all the mutations. Similarly, some are always angry. You know, some people, any sati bo vat nahi jene bo gusso avse. Dhyan rakjo. Why? Because that's a type mohaniya, which delusion. It's like cloud over you. And show you some guys thing. Tell me if you can see my screen, okay? See my slides? Yeah. So how to find karma? So today, so you can talk about, so we talk about the beginning of nirjara, flow, and nirjara, which is of karma. So today we'll talk about karma. So there are possible ways or causes about karma is like we all have a glimpse of opportunity in this human life. We're caught in the net of karma. Just like lots of fish might be free for moksha. Some realize they're caught in the net and they apply all their efforts to come out. But the majority are sitting there waiting. And as our lifespan ends, the net is slowly being risen. Today we have comforts, we have a human life, we have family that care for us. Most of us, I know we have a bit of pain and stuff, but most of us are, if you the whole of this world, animal kingdom, most of us are using our punya karma in this life. And we're aware that this net is rising. But once we realize, we can take effort to understand spirituality, religion, and come out of this net of karma. In the same way, there was a man who was caught in a burning house. And someone said to him, run out of this house in a burn. How long has this house been burning for? 2, what is the temperature of the fire? And 3, how long will it take for someone to put this fire out. And in that time of pondering those questions, he gets burned. So here, Bhagwan has told us various things, and we do this. It's not from God. You understand the real thing, want to and need to accept to our family, to our kids. Yes. But on the other hand, you want to start putting into practice things and start taking to come out of this house. So that's just metaphors at the start. The number for of karma is known as mithyatva. Mithyatva means a false perception. You believe what is true, untrue, and what is true as true. And in the 80 Adhara Paap is mithyatva shalya. Why? Because the wrong belief will lead you to commit many. Like, for example, animals are not alive, and hence it's fine to eat them. Would be an example. The whole concept of animal sacrifice being a form of religion, which actually has its origins in one of our Jain texts, explains where the whole concept of animal sacrifice started. But whoever started that has bound so many negative karmas, because not only have they committed those karmas, but they've started a tradition where countless people do the wrong thing. Which is why, if we don't know the answer to something, and which is why every time I do any of these talks, any of these presentations, I say, look, if by anything I say that's wrong, I'm not a sadhu, I'm not a saint, I'm a householder, we're all studying together, and any amount of name, fame is not worth binding mithyatva. And hence we're always so careful in these kind of things. So that's one angle of mithyatva. And another angle of mithyatva is something that many of you know, the story of the Madhu Bindu. I've said it many times, but I won't go into it in detail today. But briefly, this man is hanging from a branch. There's an elephant chasing him. There's 4 snakes at the bottom. There's a black and a white mouse that's eating away at a rope that he's hanging on to. And there's loads of bees stinging him. At the same time, drops of honey fall from the beehive. And a spaceship comes from the sky with 3 people, and it says, come with us, we'll rescue you from this. But he says, no, I want to have a few more drops of honey. The man represents us. The elephant is old age, death, and time. The 4 snakes are the 4 kashais: Krodh, man, maya, lobh, anger, greed, ego, deceit. As well as, you can also count them as the well around it as narak or durgati or hell. The black and the white mouse is day and night. And mithyatva and the honey is the pleasures or the temptations or the distractions of life. The spaceship is darshan, gnan, charitra, the 3 people in it. The spaceship is religion, and the 3 people in the spaceship is darshan, gnan, charitra, or faith, knowledge, right knowledge, right conduct. Mithyatva is not realizing the situation you're in, thinking of the drops of honey or selfishness or temptations as the true aim of your life, thinking of power, position, wealth, other people's opinions of us, doing what you're doing for prestige. What's the point of doing something for the congratulations of 10, 20, 100, 200, 1,000 people when in the balance is the whole of the rest of your eternity? Because this human life, once wasted, when will it come again? Any false direction of life, anything which we are doing, but our vision is not a true vision, means our motivations won't lead us to the greatest good. And we're losing this human life. And this metaphor is there to remind us how precious this human life is. And mitatva is everything we do which is for a false motive. And those false motives are the number one root of all of the rest of this. Okay? So we've identified Vivek Buddhi, we've identified with the body since time immemorial rather than the soul. Hu Mukul Shah. Hu akais to lokone am lagse. Hu akais to mara jib ne, my tongue will enjoy this. My eyes will enjoy this. Identifying with the body leads to our sins because we identify with what is transient, what is temporary, rather than what is permanent and everlasting. The second cause for binding of karma, avirti. I've only put some of the vows, but avirti is vowlessness or lack of restraint. Lack of restraint, not being careful, causing himsa. I'm going to link Brahmad, which is the third one, which is carelessness. Not being careful when you walk and stepping on insects. So our sadhu Maharajas take 5 great vows. Brahmacharya here is explained as the limit of a householder, but as a sadhu, they're completely celibate. But all of these in different forms. You can take partial vows and you can take complete vows. But every vow is there to limit the amount of violence we do to the world at large. And actually, you can bring back everything. So non-stealing, stealing can be a form of violence because you're taking someone's possessiveness, someone's belongings, and causing that person hurt and pain, and they feel a sense of loss. Untruth can also be linked to harming the truth and can be linked to a form of violence of speech. Brahmacharya, celibacy. In an act, countless lives are harmed in the sperm, and it's violence to your soul because your soul is going after transient things which cause violence to so many other jivs and take it away from its own happiness. Similarly, your soul is truth, and going away from that is a form of violence to your own soul. So yeah, we can break things down today because so more and more people can understand it, because in this Kali Yuga, our mind isn't advanced enough to grasp all of this, and if it's not laid out in more detail, we will misinterpret things. And even now we misinterpret so many things, but even more so. And to be honest, every religion has formed from a central thing where things have been interpreted in various ways. So ahimsa, or non-violence, is also the first commandment of the Bible. The Bible says, thou shalt not kill, or ahimsa. But now someone somewhere in the passage of time has interpreted that to mean thou shalt not kill humans. Similarly, arihant means fighting the inner enemies. Jihad, in its original sense, means the inner struggle. It doesn't mean a struggle against any perceived outer enemy. So if you really analyze all these other texts in their truth, then they all come back to restrict or being so careful. And when we're not, that's called avirti. Now, aparigraha, non-possessiveness, because the more we possess, the more we cause harm to our environment, to prithvikai, apkai, teukai, vaukai, earth, wind, water, fire, which are all also forms of life. Brahmad, or carelessness, we've talked about. A Sadhu Maharaj has 8 mothers. Who are the 8 mothers of a Sadhu Maharaj? Idya Samiti, care when walking. Bhasha Samiti, care when speaking. Care when placing objects. So like this, there's 8. And then at the end, there's mind, speech, and action. Man, Vachan, Kaya. And their whole life is like walking on a tightrope of really focusing the mind on elevating oneself individually and causing minimum harm to all life around us. 5 great vows. And whenever we do Samaik, we're becoming a sadhu for 48 minutes. And the reason a Samaik is so powerful in the amount of punya it creates is because we're accepting all of those vows for 48 minutes. For 48 minutes, we're granting protection to Puthukai, Apkai, Teukai, Vaukai, earth, wind, water, fire, life. We don't harm or use any of those in that time. To insects, to by mind, speech, and action. But a true Samaik has so much power, as does Pratikaman, because you're going fully into Virti in that time. Kashai. Kashai is what really sticks the karma to us. Kashai, we know the basics: Krodh, Man, Maya, Lobh. Anger, pride, deceit, and greed. Kash means sansar, the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. I is increase. Anything that increases the cycle of life, death, and rebirth is a kashai. We'd add to that list of 4 rag and dvesh, attachment and aversion, jealousy, revenge, lust, ego. There's many of them we can add, but anything like that is a kashai that extends our cycle. And our senses, our 5 senses, the 5 uncontrolled horses of our senses, are driven by the charioteer of our unbridled kashais. We have various reflections in Jainism to remind us of these kashais and the harm and the damage they can cause. Krodh Nisajai, reflection on anger. So I won't do the whole Krodh Nisajai today, but we have various sajais which look at various things. So there's a sajai on each of the 4 kashais. Some of you might know the story of Jan Kaushik the snake. There's a story of how Jan Kaushik the snake became the Jan Kaushik the snake. And it began 3 lifetimes before he was a snake. And 3 lifetimes before he was actually a sadhu marriage. And how this sadhu marriage gave into anger and how this anger multiplied. So at the time of a kashai, even if someone else is angry to us, at the end of our life, our book is read. Not the books of other people, not the books of what this person did and then I did that. Our deeds are looked at in isolation. And the eternity of our future incarnations should be before us at every point in life. And then it's in our own self-interest to limit our kashais. I won't share the whole story of Jan Kaushik, the snake's previous lives, today, because we only have 5 minutes left. And I just want to provide a bit of an overview simply on causes of binding of karma. We haven't even talked about cause and effect today. That includes astrology, time, many other things, but maybe we can address that another time. I'll cover this topic fully today. Again, a marker for a future session. Many of you might have heard of the story of Gunsen and Agni Sharma, Samraditya Kevli Charita. Revenge is a particularly dangerous form of anger. And actually, there is in English now a 3-part series, each 500 pages, on the story of Samraditya, which looks at how one moment of severe anger is responsible not just for one lifetime in Narak, but many, many lifetimes in Narak and animal states for this soul called Agni Sharma, and how forgiveness from Gunsen, the virtue, ascends the soul of Gunsen. I have a 20-minute video which goes through their story. If anyone would be interested, send me a message after this and I'll send you a link on the story of Gunsen and Agni Sharma. Similarly, greed is another kashai. And it's not just in our own faith. You know, we can find things. In English literature in school in A levels, we studied the Canterbury Tales, and there was a story of the Pardoner's Tale, which talks about how greed waylays. So these stories and these tales are there in many traditions, and we can learn the lessons from all of these. Whether that's from Rumi, that has a story about the dangers of greed. Yog. So to recap, mithyatva, delusion, avirti, vowlessness, pramad, carelessness, kashai, the passions, and yog, the actions of the mind, speech, and body. Our mind has a huge amount of power. There's a story of Dandulya Mats, where there's a whale in the deep dark ocean who always used to open his mouth and eat lots and lots of fish. But through the gaps in his teeth, some fish used to escape. He did this every day for so many countless years. Inside his eye, there was a small insect, Dandulya Mats, something like that was the name. This insect used to look and used to say, "This fish is so stupid. If I was this fish and I had this kind of strength, look, these small fishes are escaping through the gaps in his teeth. I wouldn't even let these small fish escape." This deep, dark fish in the ocean built paap, I believe, for Chatonarak. But this small Tandulya in the eye, I believe, again, if I'm wrong, then just look this up as well, and let me know, correct me, but built paap for Satma Narak, or hell, or a worse Narak. The mind has more power to do paap than even the speech and the action. And there's a famous story of Prasanna Chandra Rajarshi about this. I'm not gonna do the story today. I'm just gonna finish up to show you something. But the story of Prasanna Chandra Rajarshi, again, if anybody is interested, we can do a future session on the power of the mind, both positive and negative. And how to control the mind. But it links in to karma band through yoga. Yeah? Yoga is actions of the mind, speech, and the body. Or the three yoga, man yoga, vachan yoga, kaya yoga. And through these three mechanisms, we bind karma. So to recap, we bind karma through mithyatva, ignorance, avirti, lack of restraint, pramad, carelessness, the kashais. Kash is the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. I is anything that increases it. An example is anger. And yog, or the actions of the mind, speech, and action. Man, vachan, kaya. I think I'm going to stop there, so it gives 5 minutes for any questions, because we talked about a lot of things. And there's loads more we could talk about. You know, we can talk about proving karma, the diary of Anne Frank, Barbara Kalin, hypnotherapy experiments, proving karma. We can talk about Jailer and practical application of the philosophy of karma, how to use it in our lives, at work, with our children, with our family, how to use it to face world events. You know, what's going on in the world often depresses me, and how can we look at that from the angle of karma to both know how to address that positively, to make change, but not lose ourselves in kashais at the point of trying to make change. So yeah, the types of karma, you know, all the different nana varneya, darshana varneya, mohaniya, antray karma, all the subtypes. So karma is a huge topic, but this is just an introduction and a little bit talk about the bondage of karma or karma band, which is the seventh bhavana. So I'm going to stop there to give 5 minutes for questions. Okay. Does anyone have any questions based on all of that?
Yeah, I can ask a question here. So, in all, I'm Dhruvan.
Hi,
Basically.
Devin.
Yeah, hi. In the worldly means of, so we go to work, we live with a family, we have relatives, friends, society. So when we try to follow the principles of Jainism or try to be good as much as possible, there are situations which are not that straightforward.
Yeah.
And because of the knowledge that we have, it's quite possible that because of this sense which other people or someone, if they are not understanding it, it may be possible that they take advantage of the situation
Yeah.
where we are always, we can understand it, but so should we take that forever in terms of our suffering, that this was my karma, and should we just accept everything which goes on and on?
So, situations in life do manifest according to our karma, absolutely. Whether that's our relationships, at work, at home, everything will manifest according to karma. Now, since time immemorial, since infinite time, we never get rid of our karma. Why? Because we react to our karma and buy new karma. What we are seeing in this life is a snapshot, is one out of countless lives. Most of the time, what we're suffering in this life is from many lifetimes before. And how we react today, we might not see the results today. We might, but often, the reason karma is so hard and is so difficult, and the reason that everybody doesn't practice spirituality, is because each life is separated by curtains. If we had the vision to see all our previous lives, it would be very easy to follow dharma. And there's various means of logically proving everything in our faith. Now, anything that we do positively, if we can convince ourselves that in the long term, it's always to my benefit. Nobody will ever, in a bigger sense of things, be able to take advantage of me. If today someone does something to me and I don't react, so what happens with a lot of people is they don't react physically, but internally, mentally, they're bottling up anger, greed, ego, deceit, kashais, and through the action of their mind, they're still doing lots of paapa. But to truly be able to disconnect with that is very difficult. Extremely difficult. Particularly often if it happens in your own home, with your own family, to be able to disconnect with those actions. But we feel compassion for those who are experiencing Vednya karma, which is pain-producing karma. If we see them as being poor, we see them as being in pain, we feel compassion for them. But it's a lot more difficult to feel compassion for somebody who is suffering mohaniya karma, who is suffering from anger, greed, ego, deceit, lust for power, lust for wealth and trampling on others. But actually that person, to be honest, probably I feel more sorry for someone like Putin, Trump, Hitler. I feel more sorry for somebody who is like that because they do not realize. But they aje je pap કરે છે આટલા બધા વર્ષો નરકના પાપ બાંધતા હશે. So if someone is binding pap to go to narak for so many years, actually our compassion to that person, to that situation. So it's really twisting the whole way we are seeing things. And if we really twist that, then nobody can take advantage in the bigger scheme of things of anybody in this sansar. And someone who truly understands this, their whole outlook on what they're striving for, what they want in life, changes, because this sansar is dukkmay dukk falak dukkanu bandak. It's full of pain. And the biggest joy is having that direction in life of understanding that whatever the situation comes, I can go for happiness. And anyone who does anything bad, if we really dive deep into the Jain philosophy, even if we suffer physically, 95% of suffering is mentally, it's not physically. And if the mindset changes, then many people say कि अधर्मिष्ठ है, भोरो है, ये बड़ा एनो फायदो उठाओ. But actually, anyone who says that hasn't really understood religion in its true sense. Because if someone really practices religion, then what may look even like a short-term loss in a battle. If you read this whole story of Samraditya Mahakatha, Gunsen and Agnisharma, in all of those countless 9 lives, people may think that Agnisharma is taking advantage of Gunsen every time. We just have to go to the next life of Gunsen and the next life of Agnisharma and see that due to glad acceptance, how much good deeds Gunsen attained. And he felt sorry for Agnisharma every life because he realized, Mahavir Bhagwan, when Sangamdev tortured him for 6 months, Mahavir Bhagwan shed a tear, not because of his pain, but he could see that he couldn't stop what Sangamdev did. And by doing that to Bhagwan, Sangamdev built so much pap. So it's just about how we look at things and zooming out. Does that kind of answer the question a little bit?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any more questions?
So, even after understanding a lot of things in life, we try to get out of this bondage of karma. We try to stop us. But since even if after so much understanding, there are things which we can't just leave, right?
Yeah.
So what's the easiest way? So it's easy to say something, but when we start following it, it's not that easy.
No. And it can't be that easy. Our actions, we've had infinite lives in the animal kingdom, in Narak. This is one human life, okay? We have one life to break the sanskar of so many lives, countless lives. It's not easy to let go of anger. It's even harder. Anger is the easiest of the 4 kashayas to get rid of. And we all know how hard anger is. Ego is even more subtle. Many people, myself included, even the whole act of doing these talks and things, if we're not careful all the time, these things feed into our ego. Greed is even more subtle than ego. So it's Swadhyay or these kind of talks are there as much to remind ourselves also the more if I have imprinted in my brain anger for so many animal lives, then I will need to keep actively trying to practice forgiveness to try to break that imprint. I'm not going to see it on the first attempt, but the first step of succeeding is realizing there's something to break. So the first step is darshan or faith. Then it's gnan or having that knowledge. And finally, it's applying that knowledge. And the more and more and more we try to apply it, it will break away at that mohaniya karma until one day, one lifetime, that mohaniya karma breaks. And then it becomes easier to practice that. But it's not easy. But that doesn't mean we give up. And we keep forgetting, but we keep reminding ourselves. Because the more we imprint this into our brain, the more it will go into our subconscious mind. We won't carry into the next life our wealth. We won't carry what's at the surface level. What we speak to others will carry what we really believe inside. And that comes from what we keep practicing internally. Not what others think we're practicing, but what we're actually practicing. And that's the biggest gift of this life, this human life. Because if it's done to the best of our ability, this is our golden period, our golden chance. And if we make the right sanskars today, then we're definitely going to get a good life in our next life. Because our next life will manifest our sanskars from this life. Like the snake Jan Kaushik. And all of our Jain stories, and from other faiths, can bring back to this. And these are coming back to the question about kids and stuff. You know, these are the kind of things to build up the faith and to sort of talk about. The reason people commit sins is because they have no understanding of an afterlife, of a before life, of punya, of paapa, of the scientific basis of all of this. If they really understand this, then dharma is common sense. It's not it's not it's just, you know, as much as we understand, if I put my hand in some fire, it's going to burn, so I'm not going to put my hand in the fire. It's exactly the same thing. The only thing is, the concept of fire is instantaneous, so everyone understands that. The concept of karma is a little bit more delayed, so it's a bit harder to understand. That's the only difference. Any more questions? It's 9:45, so there's a message. There's a message saying, in order to break building more bad karma from anger, would it be justified if we try to dissociate ourselves from the people who increase? Yeah, absolutely. If you need to do that without having bad thoughts in your head, then, you know, Maitri Bhavano. Maitri Bhavano Pavitra Zarano Mujhaya Mavaya Kare. Maitri, the last line. So Maitri, Pramod, Karuna, and the final is Madhyast. मार्ग भूलेला जीवन पथिक ने मार्ग चिंधवा उभो रहु करे उपेक्षाए मार्गनी तो ये समता चित धरु. The pathless wanderers of life. I try to show them the path, but if they don't come to that path, and if in their company, I am going to sink my soul and delve deeper into kashais, without having enmity for them in my mind, it's perfectly acceptable and perfectly reasonable to not enter into those situations which are going to harm my soul and bind my kashais. And from a distance, I still wish positive thoughts for those people and situations and things. Absolutely acceptable. One of our bhavanas as well. Yeah. Okay. Jinagna Virud, Kaimi Bolayu Hoy. If I have said anything against the Jain scriptures, I'm no guru, I'm no learned person. I'm just someone who's trying to learn about the faith, trying to practice it, trying to apply it, trying to overcome my own kashais. And we're all sharing this journey together. If I've said anything inaccurate or misleading, or if any of my own kashais have come across in this, which they may have done, which I may have done. Thank you. I think we're finished.